It's your host, Kevin Oldham, back with another episode of Franchise My Business, the podcast for franchisors, hosted by franchisors. Pumped today because I don't know about you guys, but I see the headlines around esports. Esports means gaming, video games, and I don't know a single person alive under the age of, let's just say 50, that didn't at least grow up with video games and play them and enjoy them. Maybe as a child they did. But if you're a parent, you probably know that gaming is huge. Either that or you've had your head underneath a shell. And the esports industry is not only here, but it is thriving. And today's guest has taken an opportunity to help kiddos get involved in esports. It's my pleasure to introduce today's guest. His name's Jay Melamed. He's the co-founder and CEO of XP League. It's an innovative youth enrichment franchise in esports. And it's yet another business that was hatched in the middle of a pandemic. So that seems to be a common theme here. When the world goes sideways, innovation and business typically goes through the roof. Just sometimes you won't hear about it. So we're going to hear about it today. Jay, welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, thanks so much, man. I appreciate you having me.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Let's just get the elephant out of the closet, because I think a lot of people, if they don't know how big esports is or even know what esports is, they may not be aware of how massive this industry is, what's happening in it. So why don't you just give us a real quick snapshot on what esports is in case somebody doesn't know, and what the industry is all about.
Sure, for sure. So the first thing that I like to tell people when they, are new to the esports dialogue is that it's, we get hung up in the nomenclature of esports. It's really just competitive video games, and it's playing video games on a team. Also, a lot of folks will say, "Oh, esports, that's cool. Do you guys play Madden and 2K?" And those are esports, but they don't have to be a sports title game. I mean, kids are playing Fortnite. That can be an esport if they're doing it competitively. Valorant's a huge one right now. Dota, League of Legends. Those are all really massive ones. And I can tell you a lot of folks may have come in contact with some of these games and not even know it by watching Netflix's new Arcane series. That was a massive hit. That's literally built off of League of Legends, and it was done and produced by Riot Games, and it's a really great show. If you haven't seen it, it's a lot of fun. The industry is growing leaps and bounds. When I started XP League, on my initial slide deck, I had a slide showing the universities that were currently offering scholarships, and it was one slide. As of, the end of 2022, there's 300 plus schools that have some sort of scholarship money. I mean, some are, big, like full rides, not a ton are in full rides, but there's a bunch in that, like, 2 to 10 grand, range. So, I've got 4 kids, so anything towards college is something that I look forward to. And I'm sure a lot of other parents out there, think the same, but, it's been huge overseas for a long time. We're now, in the US and North America, really starting to understand, the audience for this. And I can tell you that if you don't understand it, that's okay. Your kids certainly understand it. And, the average kid can tell you, they can probably tell you more streamers than they can tell you football players.
Yeah. I mean, it's true, right? With Twitch and all these other things that are, social media being able to push all this message out to our kiddos. These are becoming their new sports heroes, their new celebrities that they follow, particularly if they're, really into gaming or computers or anything. Right.
Yeah.
So that's really, really cool. And you guys build this business basically to franchise. Is that correct? With the franchising as part of the roadmap for expansion. Let's talk about your founder's journey, because I think that's always one of the coolest parts, like the energy, the uncertainty, the just everything around starting a new venture. So you back in
there was
April 2020 is when you guys went live, but what was happening prior to that when you're like, hey, first of all, this is an industry we want to go into, and second of all, we've determined that franchising is the right methodology in terms of a business model?
Yeah. So, what was going on? I mean, at that point, it was a global pandemic. I was working full time as a regional vice president for a really large, publicly traded business consolidator, and so I was doing a lot of M&A stuff. And my wife and I were watching this pandemic unfold, and our kids, like I said, I've got 4 kids. The largest social media platform really is gaming. For those age kids. I mean, they're all on TikTok, but they're actively communicating when they get on a video game. Like they've got their headsets on and they're talking and communicating, and it's the Wild West out there. I mean, it is, you would never take, your kid, an 11-year-old kid, and drop him off at at a basketball court down the street, or, just in some neighborhood you're not that familiar with, and just be like, all right, man, I'll catch you later, and just like take off and like hope that he'll find somebody to play with and that they'll be, nice to him and that everything will go well. But that's what we're doing every day in video games. Like, our kids are getting on there. They're playing with people they don't know. There's no rules. There's no structure. And it can be a pretty toxic and tough environment. And so, we wanted to build an environment that we could control, and build structure to, so that kids can participate in this, enjoy it, have fun, but still have some boundaries, and some structure in place. The other side of it too is I was looking at my youngest, who has zero interest in ever playing a sport. My older son has been really athletic, and my daughters have played on teams before and did all that. But my youngest was like, no, I'm not sweating, not into it. So we were thinking about, well, if we could do this in a way where we, kind of follow this esports model where we have these teams, but bringing in coaches. So I partnered with the Positive Coaching Alliance early on to start building out some coaching curriculum, putting all these things together to really build a life skill building, program that mimics conventional athletics. Because I think that's the other problem that I was trying to solve, is that esports are really messy and there's not a lot of structure. Even though the high schools have them, there's middle school esports. The programming is very, very dependent on that volunteer teacher or whoever is putting it together. And there's no real like overlying structure. And so we wanted this to be, we want it to be very, very defined. And the reason it's a franchise was the most important thing to this is scale, because kids don't want to play the same kids all the time. And so, so I had 2 choices, right? I could, put together a pitch deck and try to raise, $100 million really fast. Or I could look at it and say, hey, what's better? Let's franchise it, find people who are interested in this, see the vision, believe in what we're doing, have them put skin in the game and be partners with us as we grow this infrastructure and as we grow this program. And that was, that's obviously what we went with. And, that's where we're at today.
That's awesome. So is it safe? Like, there's no prototypical franchisee, but would you say that there's a lot of people who maybe have kids that are involved in esports or gaming or something like that are like, why do people buy your franchise? Let's cut through the chase. Why?
Yeah. So it's interesting. We have a bunch of different owners who all have their own stories. I mean, we have a father and son team who the son competed in Overwatch in college, and he was, he's a really good player, and his dad was looking at, like helping him figure out what his next steps were, and they were looking at business schools. And so, he said to me, he's like, look, I think this is going to be better education and it's less expensive than sending him to business school.
Let's just buy you a business.
Let's do this together.
Dude, that's super cool. I like
let's
that.
Do this together.
I want to have coffee with that guy.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a great guy. Super, super good dude. We have a mother and son team where the mom is an entrepreneur. She's had businesses before. She's actually a full-time realtor as well, and owns a real estate franchise. Her son is a professional Fortnite player. And, so he's a guy who at 13 or 14 years old, got sponsored, was making 50, 60 grand a year.
That's so cool.
Just playing Fortnite. Yeah. Super great guy. And so they teamed up to open up a franchise in South Florida. Then we've got folks like me who are these Gen 1 gamers, these original OG gamers who
like Atari 2600s, man. We had pixels, 8 bytes.
Well, So you got me beat, but I did have a Commodore 64 and a Super Nintendo, but so it's I forgot where I was going there. Yeah, so Generation 1 gamers. So we look at it as a way to connect with our kids, and I think that there's a bunch of us kind of in that same realm, and then we have owners who came into this and are just excited about esports, own other businesses, and have hired people to run, their franchise for them. So there's a bunch of, it's really interesting. There's not too many prototypical, this is our mold and this is what they all are like. I mean, they're exactly. They're very different stories.
And I love the guy who's like, hey, it's like going to college. Why don't I buy you your own college experience and asset, that you can get a return on? And you can always go back to college if you want to, but he's absolutely right. Like that kid is going to learn so much more by doing than by reading books that are going to be outdated by the time it gets out in 4 years. It's not even funny.
Yeah, exactly. Marketing degree. Yeah. Figure out how to market. You want to learn about, digital and paid advertising. You don't need to go to school for that.
I wonder if my kids
spend some time figuring it out for your business. 529
would work for a down payment on a franchise. Now you literally have, I'm a dad too. I got a 9-year-old and almost 11-year-old in my head scratch. And I'm like, that might be one of the coolest ideas I've ever heard, honestly. So,
it's pretty.
So you guys start franchise. I mean, you basically go live in April. So your first franchise, summer of 2020. And then at one point you decide to partner with an organization called Unleashed Brands. What is Unleashed Brands, and what is the partnership that brought to your organization that's really helped you guys?
Yeah. So, my background is, I've been an entrepreneur. I've started and sold businesses. And, I have my MBA. So I went through that conventional, education part. I didn't get to, nobody bought me a franchise when I was looking at business schools. Although in retrospect, I've learned a heck of a lot more, owning and running businesses than I did at B school, admittedly. But I didn't know a lot about franchising. And so, getting into franchising, obviously, I mean, you're into it. Your listeners are into it. There's a lot of rules and regulations. There's a lot of nuances. There's, ups and downs of being a franchisor. And you run into all these things, and it has enough variance from a standard entrepreneurial journey that having a guide and a platform Sherpa, so to speak, working with you to help you lever up and build onto their platform as that's really where that's where I was excited about their interest in XP League, was having a supercharged Fran dev team, having in-house legal to help with all right, great, we got a new FDD to get out, we do business in Canada, we've got all the registration states, having all that stuff kind of focused and handled and off my plate is really fantastic. And not to mention they're well funded and excited about what we're doing. And so what do you need for growth? You need fuel. And so injecting some fuel into our fire to continue pushing that forward. I mean, they're a great partner. I mean, we've been very happy, since we've joined, and, it's a decision I would make again.
That's actually really cool. When an entrepreneur can say, hey, that's a decision I would make again. And that's probably one of the biggest decisions you've made, besides, hey, we're going to start the second franchise, is we're going to partner with these guys. Like, that's a glowing recommendation. So for listeners who don't know, I'm on Unleashed Brands website. They basically specialize in profitable brands in the youth enrichment industry. They've got martial arts, they've got urban air, just a bunch of really, really cool, looks like 6 brands right now that are all geared towards helping kiddos live a better and more enriched life, So that's super cool.
Yep. Exactly. I mean, if you, Michael Browning is the CEO of Unleashed Brands, and the founder of Urban Air as well. He'll tell you like this, the whole model of Unleashed is to, help kids, be great now. He always says, kids don't have to wait to be great, which is, it's a cool
really cool tagline. It's really cool.
Yeah. And, with XP League, we fully agree with that. I mean, one of the biggest, moments in a season for us, for like our big thing once a year is we actually have a large in-person tournament where the kids qualify and they come out and compete, and we do it up large. I mean, this is we were actually up for an award in the esports world, Tempest Award, for the best non-scholastic esports event. But I mean, it's crazy. The scale and professionalism of the tournament that we put on, it's on par with, most pro events. In fact, in some cases, for some of the smaller titles, I mean, it's probably better produced.
Super cool. So to say it again, you literally are getting just players that are playing within your franchise locations. You're basically hosting an intercompany tournament and blowing out the high production value and all that. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So our franchisees, that's the beauty of our network. We're, I'm always talking to prospects and, trying to explain because a lot of our owners have owned other franchises. And the biggest difference between us and any other franchise is the amount of interaction that our franchisees have with each other. You can own, a franchise, insert any franchise name here, and meet, 2 other owners if you don't go to the convention or conference or whatever, and you're, speak to them 3 or 4 times in your entire ownership of this brand. But with our owners, they're engaged and actively communicating all the time. I mean, it is a constant, conversation because their kids are playing the other location's kids. And so you've got to, coordinate and they get to know each other. And there's some, some fun rivalries that get built up.
And it's like, hey, you can have the East Coast versus West Coast rivalry, like all sorts of really cool things.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And so they get to really get to know each other. And then, we have a big regional tournament where the winners of the regional tournament get the invites to that big in-person tournament. So, last year it was in Full Sail University in Orlando. This year it's going to be at Full Sail again. And we had kids flying in from, as far as Saskatchewan, Canada, that's I think they had to take 3 planes to get there. So it was a blast.
You basically gamified your entire, what you've done intentionally or unintentionally is you've gamified your client base, your customer base. So not only your friend, and when I say your customer base, the people, the kids and the parents that are coming into your locations, but also your franchisees. Because I can't imagine.
Sure.
If you're a business owner, you're competitive. Full stop. I mean,
yeah. They're all super competitive.
I can see if I own the XP League here in Kansas City, I'd be like, no, we want to be the top dog. We want to go to nationals, Sure. And then the kids are competitive too. Your customers, which makes them very, very sticky. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's one of the things that, I really look at our business model, and it is a very sticky model. Our kids, the retention rates are really strong. It's great to see, we've only been doing it, almost 3 years. And we've had 2 in-person events. So I've gotten to see some of the kids, and as we've grown, the same kids that were in our first event in Raleigh the summer of 2021, I saw them last summer, and every once in a while I'll get phone calls or emails, from these different kids, because there's relationships that we build. And it's all the same kids. And, we started out and we were like, we are not going to go past 14. We're going to do kids 7 to 14. And then we started getting calls from parents like, hey, Timmy's turning 15. I don't want him to stop doing. What does he do next? Like, can you please create the next step of this? Like, where do they go now? And so, we moved it up. So now, we go up to 17.
I was wondering if kids aged out of this, and so eventually they will. Yeah. But typically college going age, or maybe just franchise owning age if they got the parents with the right.
Yeah, exactly. College, franchise, or, coaching. And we've had a couple of kids go pro.
That's which super was cool too.
Yeah. I had this, list of these are the things that I need to see happen for me to believe that we have, really hit, on all cylinders. Like, I want someone to go pro. I want to know that I've helped X amount of kids, receive scholarships and go to university, to play esports. I want to have X amount of kids in our league. And so when we hit that first, I didn't think that going pro is going to be one of the early ones. But we have, we've had 3 kids, who went pro in Rocket League. They signed an
That's
agreement.
So cool,
and,
man.
Are playing on an academy team. Yeah, it's super cool. And I mean, and they're young. One of them he's a senior in high school. One of them is only 14. And so, he's going to be in school for a little while longer, but I mean, and they're good. I went to this really big event, in Atlanta called DreamHack, and, just happened to run into them, and, they were playing there and they came in second place, took home $2,000.
That's so cool. Games. No big deal, right? Yeah. So the headline here is for parents who might have kids that are more into games. And I'll just be very honest. Like at the beginning of the pandemic accelerated the adoption of technology in my house. Full stop. At that point in time, we had a 7 and a 9-year-old. That's when they got on Kids Messenger. That's when they start, that's when I started seeing the social connections. And at that point in time, my son was really into Fortnite. Still loves playing it. And, as a dad who's grew up with games and loves games and all those things, I'm like, man, I don't want him to get addicted to these things. I'm like, oh, you need to get outside. But then you started seeing, hey, this is their new reality. That's old school. That's how we grew up. But this is their world. This is all these kids know. So why not give them the best opportunity to have a safe environment? Online bullying is a thing. I'm imagining gaming, and it's very easy for her, a random person to run by and be like, hey, you suck or whatever. Right. And really, hurt that kid's ego, how they're feeling. And so I think it's just really, really cool that, first of all, we get the opportunity just through this podcast to share the word that this is a real thing. It's a huge industry. It's a very net positive for today's youth who are interested in gaming. And the fact that it is the Wild West out there, it's really cool that there's good guys like you and your team out there providing an ecosystem that is inclusive and safe and all about just, doing awesome at whatever game you want to play, And who knows? Yeah. Maybe you'll become a world champion one day.
And that's great if they do. But honestly, as long as they, if our kids turn around and play online games competitively outside of our league and carry the XP League values with them, I mean, that's the win. Huge. That's a huge win for our mission, because it is really toxic in a lot of these games. And so I like to think that as more and more kids come through our system, maybe in 15 years it'll be a very different world than online gaming, because XP League had that large of an impact. One of the things that we talk about internally is everyone, whether or not you were in Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or anything, everyone knows what an Eagle Scout is, right? I mean, I was not in scouting, but I know what an Eagle Scout is. And I want XP League to kind of carry that same recognition, where if a kid is applying to college and he wants to play on an esports team, that coach looks at it and says, oh, he played for XP League. I know that he's not going to cause forfeitures. He's going to show up to practice. He's going to show up to play. He's going to have a good attitude. He's going to know how to fill his teammates' emotional tanks. He's going to understand, different levels of how to win well, how to lose well. Respecting the game and respecting officials and their teammates and their opponents. These are all, core values of what our kids learn. And, so I want that to be kind of a badge of honor for them, and a badge of recognition. And the same thing with our coaches, because our coaches are sometimes young kids who are just really interested, like young college kids interested in esports, want to pursue a career there. Great. Well, when they look at getting involved deeper into the esports world, being able to say, oh, I coach for an XP League, having a pro organization look at that and be like, oh, I know those guys. That's great. It's an awesome opportunity. And so we're actively building relationships with pro orgs. We've partnered with some of the biggest names in professional competitive esports. And so that's been really, really cool because the kids get to interact with, their idols, and, the game that they're playing. They may get on a Zoom call with, if they're an Apex Legends fan, they may get on a Zoom call with some of the guys from Dark Zero who won the Apex Major in Raleigh last year. Which, if you're follow hockey, it was in the Carolina Hurricanes Stadium and they sold it out. So that's a lot of people coming to watch it.
In the NHL.
It's a lot of people coming to watch people play video games. So it's an exciting world, and we're trying to make sure that we're paving the right path.
I'll bet your kids think you got a pretty cool, they think you got a pretty cool dad. I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, it is pretty cool, especially with my son. My older son is really into it. Like my daughters play some, one of them is kind of phased out of it. The other one's still plays, but it's kind of like a hobby, not too into it. But my older son, he's very passionate about it and he's very good. And so he focuses, and really, he trains. And so, when he'll talk about something, I'll be like, oh yeah, no, I know the guy that runs that org.
Like, whoa,
he'll be,
what?
He's
what?
Just like,
Dad's a celebrity. Dad's a celebrity.
Everyone. Well, so it's fun. It gives me a little bit of cred with him and his friends, which is a huge benefit of being involved in XP League. And this is our franchise owners and even the parents of the kids. It gives you this new opportunity to connect with your kids on their level. And it's an unbelievable opportunity, because I get to, if I wanted to go outside and skateboard with my kids, they would let me, but they wouldn't be themselves with their friends in front of me. Right. I think back to things that if my mom or dad wanted to hang out with me, it'd be a little weird. You're going to hang out and do what we're doing. This is a little odd. But when I play with my kids and their friends, I'm one of the kids. You're
just another player.
I'm exactly.
NPC, your dad.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty funny. So it gives you a little bit of insight into your kids in a different dimension that you really don't get an opportunity to see. So
it's kind of fun. If people want to learn more about you or your organization, where's the best place for them to go online?
Yeah. So our website is xpleague.gg. There's also xpleague.com, but all esports orgs use .gg for good game. We're on Twitter, just at XP League. I'm at Melamed Jay. But feel free to reach out. I'm super available. I love connecting with folks on LinkedIn and on Twitter. So
cool. Well, you guys heard it here first. I would encourage you, if you have a child who is into gaming and you're an entrepreneur, to check out XP League, because, I think this is a really cool business opportunity. It is not only a cool business opportunity, a cool business within the industry, but it is a booming industry. So Jay, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to meet with us. I got nuggets of gold here, and I know our listeners did as well.
It's awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, until next time, I'm your host, Kevin Oldham, and I just have 2 asks. Number 1, there's probably somebody in your world, in your life that you care about that would benefit from hearing Jay's message this episode. Go ahead and just text a link to them right now and say, hey, I was thinking about you. Check out this episode. And then my second ask is, if you like what we're doing at Franchise My Business, the podcast for franchisors, hosted by franchisors, go ahead and smash the subscribe button on the platform of choice. Until next time, we'll see you. Have a phenomenal day.